Okay, so good morning everyone once again, and today in this webinar coming to you from Infragistics, and we are going to learn today how to implement repository pattern in ASP.NET MVC app. Uh, uh, Before we move ahead, some information about today's webinar. Recording of the webinar will be available on infragistics.com/community/blogs. Don't worry about this URL. If you want, you can take the screenshot right now, or you will get this URL in your follow-up webinar email. So don't worry about that. If you are missing something, webinar recording is going to be available to you by Monday or Tuesday. If you have any query, if you want to explore our offering, like what all different products we do have, which can help you to increase your productivity and make you a better developer, I encourage you, I request you that please go ahead and explore infragistics.com, and I'm sure that you'll find it useful for you. If you have any query or regarding our product or regarding this webinar, or for that matter anything, feel free to reach us over the tweet. You can tweet us at on the handle @Infragistics. Last but not least, and very important, that if you are looking for some sales related information on our any product, feel free to reach us on the email address on your screen, that is sales-india@infragistics.com. So I urge you that please go ahead and take a screenshot of this screen. All this important information is in front of you. Well, once this is done, let us move here, and all of you who are attending today's webinar, if you are on Twitter, feel free to share your experience by tweeting with the hashtag Infragistics or mentioning to Infragistics, or you can even update on Facebook and use hashtag Infragistics. Perhaps some of you may get a chance to win some goodies from us if you are multitasking, and during the webinar you are learning, and at the same time you are sharing your experience or social media as well. So please feel free to share, whether good, bad, whatever, on tweets or on Facebook update. We encourage you to do that. So this is said and done. I'm your host. My name is Kumar, and I'm a developer evangelist for Infragistics. I'm a 6 times Microsoft MVP. You can share your experience if you want to share with me on my Twitter, that is debug_mode. And if you have any query related to technical query related to today's webinar or any of our product, feel free to reach me at dkumar@infragistics.com. So great, done. We have given 5 minutes to all these information, which are very important. Now let us move ahead to the agenda of today's webinar, and we are going to write a lot of code today. I'm not going to explain you information which is already on the internet. If you go on the internet and type what is repository pattern, you get millions of search results. So I'm not going into the theoretical part of repository pattern. I'll go very step by step and explain you that how you can implement repository pattern in a ASP.NET MVC application. But as you see, the agenda is that we are going to see in bullet points what are the advantages of repository patterns, and then we'll move ahead. Great. So advantage of repository patterns are is in front of you, like your business logic can be unit tested or data access logic. But before this slide, let me go back to Visual Studio and show you something. Okay, and then we'll come back to slide again. What I'm doing here, so I have a Visual Studio here. Okay, how usually we create a MVC application? If we don't follow any pattern, how we create MVC application? Let us first create that. What we do, we go to new project, We go to install template section, and in the Visual C# in the web, we select ASP.NET Web Application from there, and then we can give any name what we want, and then we click on OK. On the next screen, we have all these ASP.NET 4.5 templates available to us to choose. Since we want to create a MVC application, what we do, we go ahead and we go ahead and select MVC. And if you want, we can change authentication from here. Uh, mm, and uh, and if you want to change the authentication, you can go and change authentication from by clicking on that link. Just give me a moment. Yeah, here we are. So you can go and change authentication here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just put no authentication right now, and then I'll say OK. Great, and then you click on OK to create a MVC project. So here Visual Studio is creating a web application of follow using the MVC project template. This is here. Now what you do, you want to you want to work with some database, and to add a database, what you do, you go and add a database model class. I'm going to follow database first approach. To the by right clicking on the models, and you say that hey, add a new item, and then you go to the data tab, then you go to editor.entity data model, and you say add. I'm going to follow database first approach, so I'll select EF designer from database option, as you see on your screen. And then what I'll do, I will click on next. On the next screen, what I need to do, I need to create a new connection to the database, and I can create that by clicking on new connection. Guys, can you let me know which screen you are able to see right now? Uh, are you able to see entity data model wizard? Great. So you are right now on a data screen, and from there we have selected create using the EF database first approach. Great. And then I'll go to the new connection, and I'll put the server name. I'll say DJPC, and I'll choose Windows authentication. And what I'll do, I will select a table database from here. So let us say I'm selecting in the DJPC, I have many databases. I'm going to select, so for example, my server name is actually DJPC, which I have given there. And now I'll go and select the database. Let us say that I'm working with the school database. I'll click on test connection succeeded. And here you see that what I'm doing actually here, I'm creating new connection which will bring data to our MVC application. I'm following database first approach. And then I'll click on OK. Then I'll keep clicking next. I'll say use entity framework 6.x. Then I'll click on next. Then I'll go ahead and select, I can select any table, but I'm going ahead and selecting just one table, city, and then I'll click on finish. So what I have done here, I have added a model class in my application now. Keep in mind, I'm not following any architecture here. I'm just trying to show you that what are the problems you will face when you don't follow any architecture. Here I have added a city, which you can see on the screen. And next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a scaffolding, MVC scaffolding. And to do that, so right now we are on the same screen, guys. You can see that we have added city. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use MVC scaffolding to add a controller. So I'll right click on the controller folder. I'll say that add a new controller. I'll say MVC 5 controller with views and using entity framework. I'll click on add. Here it will ask me to choose the model class. I selected the model class city. Then I selected a data context class school entities. And then I'll click on add. It will create. So probably I'll have to rebuild the project. I'll go ahead and rebuild the project here. I see many people are complaining on the question and answer panel that my voice is breaking. Uh, is it breaking for everyone? Can you guys let me know whether my voice is audible to you clearly or not? Please let me know using the Q&A panel that whether my voice is audible to you clearly or not. Give me a moment to fix it. Can you guys confirm? Is it better now? My voice? Yes, I was muted. That Kalyani. I was just uh, fixing some problem. So can you guys please do let me know whether my voice is clearly audible to you or not? Okay, voice is not clear. Give me a second.
Unmuted.
So hello everyone. We have just changed the connection. Can you let me know whether now voice is audible clearly to you or not? Please use Q&A panel to let me know my voice is better or not. Great. So it seems it's better now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this a slight technical glitch. So let us directly jump to our code first demo now. I'm just hanging this demo right now, and we are no. I'm not moving the screen, so screen is exactly same there. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm directly jumping to our code, our repository pattern demo, and what we are going to do, we are going to create a product app following the repository pattern. So what we are going to do, we'll come to the repository pattern uh, difficulties and advantages later in the webinar. But here you see that how we are going to structure our project. In our project, we are going to create of 4 projects. One is the core project, another is infrastructure project, then the test project and the web project. As you see on your screen, we are going to have 4 projects: core, infrastructure, test and web. In the core project, we are going to put every information related to domain. So for example, if you are creating an application for hospital, information about doctors, information about clinic, information about anything which is related to hospital domain will be part of your core project. In your core project, you don't add any external dependencies. In the core project, you have only the information which is very much required for your domain. Then you have infrastructure project. In infrastructure project, what we do, we perform all the external operations. For example, all the database related operation, all consumption of web services or IO operations will be part of infrastructure project. Then you create a test project because you want to test whether you have implemented all the functionality correctly or not. And once all the test for your infrastructure project is passed, you use core project and infrastructure project inside your web project, inside your MVC project. This is how you structure your repository pattern. Okay, so what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do here very quickly, I'll go and here I have created a new project, okay, in Visual Studio, as you see on the screen. And this project does not, this particular solution does not have any project right now. It's a blank solution. Okay, so let us start with adding the core project. As I told you that we are going to create an application for product handling. So first what I'll do, I'll right click on solution, I'll say add, then I'll say new project. Then I'll go to Windows, Classic Desktop tab, and I will select class library. And here I'll say that I want to, this is a class library and this is going to be the core project. So I'll say product app.core. And here I have selected class library, keep that in mind. And then product app.core, I click on OK. So what I have done, I have added a class library project here called product app.core. In this, as I told you, in the core project, we are going to put only the domain information and all the database operations we want to perform on the domain. So here we are going to create a product app. So our domain entity is a product entity. So what I'll do, I'll go here again to the core project, right click, add, and I'll say that add a new class. And we are going to give that class name as product.cs. And here we have a class called public class product. Okay, so once we have done that, we need to, this product is our domain entity, we need to set its properties. And what I'll not bore you by the typing here. What I'm going to do, I have put, you see that some properties to the product class. What I have done, let me get rid of this data annotation right now. So here you see that I have a product class which got a ID property, then a name property, then a price property, and then an in-stock property. A very simple domain entity. We are going to work with this domain entity in an MVC application following a repository pattern. So here I have created a domain entity. Next, in your domain, you may have a requirement to put some data annotation, to put some restriction on your domain. For example, you want that names should be always required. Let us say you have another requirement that the maximum length for name product name should be probably 100, You want to say that, hey, price should be required. And this kind of restriction you may have in your requirement to put on domain entity. Now here is a catch. Uh, we can apply data annotation or restriction in two different places. If you consider these data annotations, these restriction as part of your domain, you can apply them right here on the in the core project. If you think these restrictions are not restriction of the domain, rather these are the restriction of database, you can apply them on your using your database technology you are using inside infrastructure project. Since we are going to use entity framework, so we can use entity framework fluent API also to apply these restrictions. But I consider these data annotations as part of the domain information. So I'm going to apply that right here in core project. Okay, so let me go here and to apply those restrictions, what I'll do, very first, right click on the core project, say add references, then you go to assemblies, and in the assemblies, you have something called system.data.annotations. We need to apply that, sorry, system.componentModel.data annotations. We need to add this library to the project first, which I am adding here, and click OK. Then we can go and apply the annotation. We'll say that, hey, this field is a required field. So what I have done, I have added that here. Okay. Also, let us say we are saying that, hey, this the maximum length for a name should not be more than 100. So I'm applying that annotation also. For example, we are saying that, hey, price is also required. So we are applying that requirement also. So here we have put the data annotations. Great. Next, what we need to do, we need to again inside the core project, inside the domain information, inside the domain project, we need to find out which all database operations we want to perform on the entity. In the product app, we need to decide right now whether we want to create product, whether we want to delete product, whether we want to update a product, whether we want to list a product on basis of ID or not, etc. So all these operations, what we want to perform on an entity is should go as part of your core project. So I call them as repository interface. And to add a repository interface, what we can do, we can go right click, add a new item, go to the data tab, go to the code tab and select an interface. In the interface, we can give a name of this interface as iProduct repository. So I'm adding an interface and giving that name as iProduct repository. Great. So this interface is actually part of your domain, your core project, and this interface will define which all database operations can be performed on your data entity. So inside this, let us go very quickly and put some definitions. So let us say we want to perform these 5 operations. We want to add a product, we want to edit a product, we want to remove a product, we want to fetch all the products, and also we want to find a product by a ID. Here I am taking a 1-minute break such that to understand what you go ahead and understand what all we have done, and if you have any question, I try to solve that. So great. I see that there are many questions at that time. Voice was breaking, so project structure is not clear. So I'll go ahead and revisit that for you. Let me go ahead and show you that again how the project structure is. As you see on your screen right now, we are going to have four projects in the application. One is the core project, second is infrastructure project, third is your test project, and which is an optional, and fourth is your web project or MVC project. Now, why we are dealing with these four different projects? Keep in mind that you can even implement repository pattern just having one project. I follow this because I follow some domain driven or development paradigm to repository pattern as well. Now, what I do, let us say we are creating right now an application for a product. So any information about product is information of your domain. Does not matter how much your application is going to evolve, your domain information is not going to change a lot. For example, your customer has given you requirement that they want to work with only product ID, product name, product price, and product in stock. This information very likely is not going to change a lot. So any information which is very much core to your domain, you are going to put that in your core project. The thumb rule is that all these entity classes like product entity, student entity, doctor entity, etc. will be part of your core project. The second item you put in core project are the interfaces which will define which all database operation can be performed on those entities. So for example, again, your customer will come to you and tell you that, hey, I only want to create and list products. I don't want to delete and I don't want to edit a product. So what all database operations can be performed on that entity is again your domain information. So how you are going to perform that is part of your database technology. But what all operations can be performed is part of your domain information. For that, we are putting that repository interface also as part of your core project. So what we do in the core project, we put all the domain entities and all repository interface, like all interfaces which will define which all database operations can be performed on those entities. So that is your core project. After that, you have infrastructure project. Infrastructure project is a straightforward project. In this project, you write the real database technology code. So for example, if you are using ADO.NET, you will be writing ADO.NET in infrastructure project. For example, if you are working with link to entity or entity framework, you will be writing entity framework code inside infrastructure project. Again, keep in mind that your core project has nothing to do with in which database you are going to save your information. Your core project does not care that whether you are saving your information in Oracle or you are saving that in SQL Server or in MongoDB. Your core project only says what information you need to deal with. Like in case of product, we are dealing with name, ID, price, and in stock, and what all database operations you want to perform on that entity. How to do that is part of your infrastructure project. Again, in infrastructure project, you'll write all, you'll decide your database type, you'll decide database technology, and you will use core project and perform those operations. So here we have created a iProduct repository interface. We will implement that interface inside infrastructure project. Great. Once infrastructure project is done, we need to directly we can use infrastructure project in your MVC project, but we don't want to do that. We want to write unit test to verify that all the code which we have written in the infrastructure project is behaving expectedly or not. And for that, we'll write a unit test project. We'll be sure that, okay, infrastructure project functionality is working fine. Then we can be assured to use that infrastructure project in a MVC project. And that's why how repository pattern works. So if I move ahead, as I told you, in the core project, we are going to put domain entities and interface for database operations. In infrastructure project, we are going to put all the database operations. So of course, your infrastructure project will have external libraries dependencies, whereas your core project won't have anything. And test project is your test project, and MVC project is your MVC project. Great. So this is how we are structuring the project for repository pattern. I'm taking a 1 minute break. If you have any question on the project structure, feel free to use Q&A panel and let me know. Great. So I see there is no question on the project structure, and here we have already created a core project. As we discussed in the core project, we have put the domain entity, which is product in this case, and also we have put your repository interface, which is iProduct repository in this case. One another important decision you have to take while creating core project is that how you consider this data annotation and data restrictions. I met many developers who consider data restrictions as part of the database operations, and I meet many developers who consider data annotations as part of the domain information. So it is purely up to you. If you there is no advantage or disadvantage of one on the another. But if you consider these data annotations, and data annotations means this required max length etc as part of domain information, then what you do, add system.component model.data annotations library in your core project, and then you annotate data right here in the core project. So what we have done in the core project, we have created an entity, then we have created the interface which is defining which all operations can be performed on the product. Before we move ahead to infrastructure project, keep in mind that core project does not have any information that how these add, edit and remove will be implemented. Core project does not have any information that whether data would be inserted in a Oracle database or a SQL Server database. Great. Now let us go ahead and create a infrastructure project. So I'll go ahead here and I'll say that okay. So first let us go and compile this to make sure that your core project is working fine. So rebuild all succeeded. Next what I'll do, I'll go to again the solution. I'll say new project. Again the same class library, and this project will call it as product app dot infra structure. So here you see that I am again adding an infrastructure project, and I'll say okay. Great. Now in infrastructure project you have to take decision. Let us say I have taken decision that I'm going to use SQL Server. I have taken decision that I'm going to use code first approach using entity framework. So since I'm going to use entity framework, the very first thing which I need to do, I need to go right click on the infrastructure project, say manage NuGet packages, and in the NuGet package manager search entity framework and install that. So here in the project I need to install entity framework. I search that and selected that and click on install. So it is I'm going to install entity framework because I'm going to use entity framework. If you're using ADO.NET, you add libraries for ADO.NET in infrastructure project. So here I'll say I accept, and it is going to install entity framework package in infrastructure project. So here it is successfully installed. You can see that finished message in the bottom. So once that is added, the next thing what we need to do in the infrastructure project, we need to add reference of the core project inside infrastructure project. So add reference, go to projects folder and say that, hey, add product app.core and click on OK. So it will add your core project inside infrastructure project. Great. So we have added all the references. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to create database following code first approach. So very first, what we need to do, we need to create a data context class, and we can create data context class by creating a class that is inheriting DB context. So what I'm going to do here, I'll be going and say that, hey, create a product context class for me. And what I'll do, I'll right click on infrastructure project. I will say add, I'll say new class. Okay, so here I'm adding a new class and I can give any name to this class. I should follow the naming convention. So I'll say that product context.cs. So here I have added a product context.css class, CS class, which is a public class. Okay, and as I told you that this class inherits DB context class. So I have put DB context there, and after that what I need to do, I need to create a connection string and all. So you see what I'm doing here, I'm in the code, Control A, Control K, Control D. What you see here in line number 13, I'm creating constructor of product context class and then passing a connection string name, product app connection string, which we are going to create now. By reading this connection string, Entity Framework will decide that where you want to create your database, what name you want to give to your database. If you don't give this connection string, then Entity Framework will create a database with the name product context in the default database server. Once that is done, but I want to control that, so I'm providing this product app connection string explicitly over here. Next, what I need to do, I need to create a table. This is the syntax you need to follow. Line number 17. Public DB state the type of your entity, which is product, and then the products is the name of the table which will get created, and then get and set. So this is the data context class you need to create. Once data context class is created, what we need to do, we need to create that connection string, which is this product app connection string. And this connection string will create inside app.config. So click on app.config. And just below the config section and above entity framework, go ahead and add a connection string. So you see line number 17 to line number 7 to line number 9 rather. I'm saying that connection strings, product app connection string, name is the product app connection string which we are using in the constructor of context class. And here you can create a normal connection string. I'm creating in the local DB, and let us say I'm calling this as, for example, product app live webinar, the name of the database here. Okay, and then I'm saying that I'm following Windows authentication and all that. So here I have added connection string. Here I have created context class. Next, what we need to do, what we want that when database gets created, we want to seed that data with some initial value. And we can do that by creating a class again, and we can go ahead and right click again on the infrastructure project. I'll say that, hey, add a new class. And I'll call this class as, for example, product DB init class or something, product DB. So let me call it as product initialize DB class. So this particular class will initialize, will seed the database with some initial rows. And I'll say add. So here I have added a product initialize DB class. I'll go here and make it public. Okay, and this class can inherit from, there are many options, drop, drop, create database if model changes, and all those. What I'm going to do, I'll say that I'm going to select the option of drop, create database if model changes, and what it does, what actually it is saying in line number 10, that hey, whenever model changes, what you do, you recreate the database. Model means whenever we'll go and change something in this product entity class, since we are following the option of drop, create database if model changes, what entity framework will do, it will recreate a database whenever anything in the model changes, and in this case our model is product. Great. So here I have in the line number 10, I'm doing that, and product context class I have passed here. Once that is done, what I want to override the seed method. So here you see that I am overriding the seed method. The seed method gets called when you insert some to seed your database with some initial values, and I'll go and insert, let us say, 2 rows. So here I'll go very simple code. I'll say that hey, context.products.add new product, and add a product with ID 2, sugar, in stock, false price. In the same, I'm saying new product, ID 1, rice, true, and 30. So we are inserting 2 rows when database gets created. Then I'm saying context.save changes. Great. Now, my friend, keep in mind, whatever I have done so far in infrastructure project, I have to do that because I'm using entity framework code first approach. I don't have any database in place. I'm following repository pattern, and I'm saying that hey, read the domain entity from code project, read domain interface, repository interface from code project, and create a database for me in SQL Server at that particular location which we have defined in connection string. Also, what I'm saying that while creating the database, seed the database with 2 rows, sugar and rice products. So I have done this for the code first approach. If you are using ADO.NET or any other database technology, they may have their own ways. Great. So here we have created this database code first thing. Next, what we need to do, we need to go ahead and implement. We need to go ahead and implement this iProduct repository. Remember, we created this repository interface which defines that which all operations can be performed on the product entity. So we need to implement this, and how we can implement this, we'll take this guy from here, iProduct repository, right click on your infrastructure project, add a new class, and give the name to this class as product repository.cs. Okay, so you can see that I'm giving the name of the class as product repository.cs, and then I'll click on add. I'll make this class public. Okay, and I'll say that this class is going to implement iProduct repository from the core project. Okay, so what I'm saying that public class product repository, implement iProduct repository, right click here and say that implement interface, and here now we need to write the codes to implement the interface. You see here we have now we are implementing, and this is the repository. Now it says our choice which code we want to write. We want to write a SQL code or we want to write an Oracle code. It's completely our choice. In the infrastructure project, your core project has nothing to do with that. But here we are using SQL Server entity framework code first approach. So we are going to use that, and that is very simple. What I'll do here, I'll come here and very first create object of product context. Then I'll say that hey, to add a product, what we need to do, we need to say context.products.add, and then context.save changes. This will to add a product. To edit the product, we'll go ahead and say that, hey, to edit the product context.entity.state, and these are very simple link you to entity queries. So I'm not explaining them, just writing that for you. Then to find by ID, I'll go ahead and write a link you query, which is saying that context.products where r.id is ID. Then for the get products, we'll say that, hey, return context.products. And then to delete a product, first we'll find that product and then we'll delete that product. So here I'm going there and saying that, hey, find that product and delete that product. So it's normal link you to entity queries, which we have implemented here to implement the product repository. So here what we have done, we have completed the infrastructure project. In the infrastructure project, we have the real information that how database would be saved or deleted, or we can fetch the database. And in my infrastructure project has the information that where this database is going to be created, which database technology we are using, etc. My core project does not have any information about that. So I'm giving you a 30-second break just to again recollect everything, and then we'll move to test project. Great. So I hope you are coming along with me so far. I know there were few difficulties in the voice, but don't worry about that. This webinar recording will be available for the latter watch, and I'm sure you are getting something. Uh, so here we have created the infrastructure project. Now we need to take a decision. The decision is that whether we want to use this infrastructure project directly into our MVC project, or we want to test it. All this functionality which we have just implemented in the repository class, we have not tested it. If we are directly going to use it in MVC project, it will be then integrated with the UI, and to test it we need to have the UI. We don't want that. We don't want that. What we want, that without any dependency on the UI or any application, I should able to test this infrastructure project repository class. And for that, what we'll do, we'll go ahead in the solution explorer, and then we'll add one more project here. I'll say that add a new project, and then go to the test tab. In the test tab, select unit test project, and then you can call this as product app dot test. In this, we are going to write unit test for the product repository class, and I'll say OK. So here I have added that. Now again, what all you need to do, very first you need to right click again and say that, hey, manage NuGet package and add entity framework. So here we need to add entity framework to test project as well, which I'm adding. I'll say I accept. So here entity framework is added. Next, what I need to do, I need to go ahead and then add reference of product app.core and product app.infrastructure. So both the core and infrastructure project, I added that. Great. Next, what I need to do, I need to copy the connection string as well, because keep in mind that always Visual Studio reads the connection string from the config file of the application which is running. To run the test, we'll be running the test project. So the connection string must be available inside the test project config file. So what I'm going to do, I'll just go ahead and copy paste this connection string from here, and I will go to config file of test project here, and I will just go ahead and copy paste that. So what I did, what all step I done, I have added entity framework reference, I added a core project, I added infrastructure project, and I copied the connection string to the test project. So now test project is ready. What we can do, we can now go ahead and go ahead and write the test. So to write the test, very first what we need to do, we need to add a class. Let us say we are adding a class called product repository test. So for that, right click on your test project, say that add a new class. And here I'm saying that product repository test.cs. Okay, so I need to make this class as a public class and then attribute this as test class. So this is going to be test class. Attribute that and say that add a reference of unit testing. Now we need to set up the test. And how we can set up the test? To set up the test, what we are going to do here, as you see, I'm creating first a variable of product repository because we are going to test that. Then I'm creating a test initialize function, means this function will be called each time you execute a test. Then what I'm saying that I'm creating an object of product initialize DB. You remember we created this class to seed the database with some initial data. So I'm creating that object of that, and then what I'm doing, I'm using entity framework set initializer and passing this because we want to insert those two rows when we test product repository class. And then again what I'm doing, I'm creating instance of product repository. Great. So very first, let us say we want to test that, hey, whether database got created successfully or not. And if database got created successfully, then we are able to, the repository class is able to insert those two rows or not. You remember, if you go back here, that we are inserting two rows in product initialize DB. So how we can test that? How we can write test for that? We can write test for that in a very easy way. We can go here and say that, hey, create a test method. Is repository initialized with valid number of data? Okay. So very first we'll say that repo.getProducts. You remember getProducts is the function inside your repository class. If you go, and what it does, it returns you all the products from the product table, right? So I'm calling that getProducts. So in this way, we are actually writing unit test for getProducts. We are asserting that whether result is null or not. Then we are fetching number of records, result.toList.count. And then if everything is correct, if behavior of get products and your product initialize DB is correct, we should able to get two record and this test should pass, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to here right click, I'll say that rebuild that application. Okay, now to see that test running, what you need to do, again go ahead and rebuild the application. Okay, after successfully rebuild, what you do, go to the test in the menu, then Windows, and then Text Explorer. I repeat, test, Windows, Test Explorer from the menu. Click on Test Explorer, and here you see that one test is repository initialized with valid number of data is listed. Now right click there and say run selected test. Now what Visual Studio is doing, it is trying to run that test. If this test pass, then we are going to verify that, okay, we are able to create a database successfully and there are two records got inserted successfully as well. And here you see that your test passed. It means our infrastructure project and product repository class implementation was correct for get products method. In this way, you can go ahead and write test for all the functionalities. I'm just leaving that for you, or quickly let me go and show you how you can write test for adding a data. So to write a test to add a data, what you can do, you see what I'm saying, that hey, test method, create a is repository add product, create a product, okay, and then call the add method. To add a product, we have that add method inside the product repository. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, if this data is successfully inserted, then the number of record will increase to 3 from 2. So I'm saying that repo.get products, and the same what we did in the last test. Again, go ahead and rebuild this test. and open your test explorer. You have this is repository adds product, run selected test, and here we see that it is able to test that we are able to, our product repository class is able to create a product as well in the database. So far what we have learned, we learned that we implemented the whole database technology, and so far even we don't have MVC project in our solution, you can see here. But we are very much sure that the code which we have written to perform database operation on our domain entities are working fine because these tests are getting passed. Now, very quickly we can go and add a MVC project, or for that matter, any kind of project, WPF, MVC, or any project, and go to web. I'll say ASP.NET Web Application, and we'll call this as product app.web. Oh, sorry, is Control V, just a minute. So I'll go ahead, I'll say right click, add a new project, go to wave, go to ASP.NET Web Application, say the name of the web application is product app.web, okay. On the next screen, we can go and select MVC template. Again, I'm going to change authentication to no authentication, okay, and then I'll click on OK. I'm selecting MVC, putting authentication to no authentication, and then I click on OK. So here what I have done, I have added your MVC project in your test. If you are following along, you must have noticed that we are adding that MVC project in the last, and we are very much sure that our infrastructure project is working fine, product repository classes working fine, our domain entities and the domain repository interface are in the place. And now in the last, we are going and creating the MVC project. Again, in the MVC project, what we need to add, we will go here and say that add reference of core project and infrastructure project. Also, what we need to do, we need to go ahead and add the connection string. As I told you that always Visual Studio reads the config file of the running application. So in this case, MVC will be the running application. So connection string should be the part of web.config, which I'll put here connection string. Okay, so I have put connection string inside web.config of MVC, and we'll go ahead and rebuild to make sure that everything is correct. Now I'm going to use the scaffolding, which I was showing you when we follow the database first approach. For that, I'll right click on controller. I'll say that, hey, add a new controller. MVC 5 controllers with views using entity framework option I'm selecting here. Okay, I'll click on add. It is asking me for the model class, and our model class is coming from the core project, and our model class name is product from the core project. Then it is asking me for the data context class, which is product context from the infrastructure project. I'll choose this option that, hey, generate views for me, reference the script libraries and user layout page, and then I'm leaving the controller name as products controller, and I'll click on add. So Visual Studio is a scaffolding, and here you see that it has, what it has done, it has created the products controller class for me, and it has added a code to perform those CRUD operations. But my friend, there is one catch here. If you notice line number 16, since we have used a scaffolding, Visual Studio is creating object of product context class here to perform these operations. We don't want product context class in MVC because product context class is something which is component of entity framework. And if we have anything of entity framework inside MVC project, we are tightly coupling your UI and your database technology. We have not followed all this architecture of core project and infrastructure project to directly create object of product context inside the controller. You remember we have, for the database operation, we have a class called product repository, and we have already tested that class also in the test project. So instead of product context, what we'll say that, hey, I don't want product context. What I want product repository. And once that is their product repository, let us go ahead and start refactoring a little bit. So here we want return db.products.list. So we can actually say directly db.getProducts, right? So db.getProducts will get us all the products. Then the details, it is db.products.find. Instead of that, we will say that, hey, db.find by ID, and we need to pass then convert dot to integer 32 and then ID. So this will get us the product by ID, and then it will perform the operation. Okay, so I'm just refactoring. I'm just, instead of data context class entity framework data context class API, I'm calling our own API of product repository class. To create, what we need to do to create, we don't again here to edit, instead of db.products.find, what we can say that we have already written that over here. If you remember the code for the details, product db.find by ID, we'll select that. Okay, so here to create what we want, we don't want db.products.save changes and all. What we simply want, db.add, and then inside the add we can pass product. So it will add a product. Instead of for the edit, again we want here this one, it will edit that, and then again here for the edit, actually model, if model state is valid, we don't want to do this. What we want just db.edit, and then after we'll say db.edit. So it will, and of course in the edit we need to pass the product, so we'll be passing this product here. Okay, so I'm just refactoring it, a very simple refactor to replace context from the repository. Again here we'll say that delete, and to delete, again what we are going to do, we are not going to do all these. Instead of this product by find by ID, I'll put this code, and then we'll say that, hey, db.remove and pass the product. Okay, so here we have and we don't want to do that. Okay, so Azure remove just takes ID, so we just need to pass the ID, and we don't need to do this. So what I have done here, you can see that I just refactored the product controller class, because we created that using the scaffolding, such that I want Visual Studio to create the views for me. I did not want to create those views manually from my side, so I used a scaffolding. But when you use a scaffolding, what it does, Visual Studio, it uses the context class to perform the database operation. We don't want to use context class, because if you use context class directly inside your MVC project, actually your database technology, which is your entity framework, and your MVC are tightly coupled to each other. You don't want that. We want to use the repository class, because repository class are unit tested, they are reusable, and if we need to change something, we can go to the repository class and change at one place, and it will be reflected everywhere. So I have just used product repository and refactored it. Okay, to use repository, I'll go ahead and say that, hey, rebuild my MVC project. Okay, and I'll make this MVC project as the starter project. I'll go ahead and say that run this application. Okay, so here you see that application is running. I'll go to the products. And here you see that I'm getting rice, sugar, and salt. Remember, we had 3 records. We inserted 1 record from the test project. Here we are getting rice, sugar, salt. We can go and say that, hey, create a new project, create a new product for me, and let us say that product is, for example, anything, salt. And then you say that the price of that is 45, it is in stock, create, and here you see that the salt project, salt is again added to the 45. You can go ahead and delete one, You can go ahead and edit, you can create, you can see the details, back to list. So here you see that we have created a MVC project which is following the repository pattern. If I again go back and show you everything to you, you see this is our project structure. We have the core project. In the core project, we have only domain information and repository interface inside the core project. Inside the infrastructure project, we have all those database operation related code. We are using entity framework and all that. We then return the test project, which is verifying that hey, all the method of the product repository is actually tested. Here you see that here even you can, if you notice here, you can see that it is saying that hey, for the add 1 out of 1 test is passed. Can you notice that? So we tested all this functionality. Once we were sure that all the functionalities are tested of the repository, what we did, we went ahead and created the MVC project, and inside MVC project we are using the repository class here and performing the operation. And you see this application is loosely coupled, it is testable. So now if I go back to the slide again and then show you advantages of repository pattern, and let us see that whether these 5 advantages of repository pattern is available to the project which we just created right now or not. So very first advantage, it is saying that business logic can be unit tested without data access logic, which we done that, right? Actually, we unit tested the data access logic right now, but we can write a business, if we have a business logic, we can write that test also. We really don't need UI for that. Second, it is saying that data access code can be reused. Of course, that infrastructure project you can reuse anywhere you want, any number of times you want. The third advantage is saying that database access code is centrally managed, so easy to implement any database access policy such that cache. Right now, our database code is at the one place in the product repository class. If we need to implement any caching mechanism or anything related to database, we just need to go to one central place and that is done. Then here we are actually following the domain driven development, easy to implement domain logic. So remember, we first created a domain entity, then we created domain repository interface, and then we came to the database. So if we follow repository pattern, the working with domain gets easier. Then domain entities or business entities are strongly typed with their annotations. As we saw that we use a strongly typed domain entities, we put the data annotations on that like required, maximum length, and all those things. And our application have all these advantages. So this is the advantage of repository pattern. And I'm done from my side. Once again, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. I'll be around for next 5 minutes to answer your questions. Recording of this webinar will be available online by Tuesday or Wednesday. And also, we are going to write a very detailed blog post on how to implement repository pattern in MVC. It will be step by step, and you can read them on the first Friday of February on Infragistics blog. Again, if you want, you can note down our informations. Like you can visit infragistics.com. You can go to the infragistics.com/community/blog/Kumar to get the recording of the webinar. If you have any queries, send a mail to sales_India@infragistics.com. So once again, guys, sorry, in between there were some technical glitches and that voice was not clear, but I'm sure this webinar added some value to your learning. I'm going to stop the recording before I answer a question, and I'll be around for 5 more minutes before I close to the webinar.